He thought grabbing a black girl's shirt on the soccer field would silence her forever, but he had no idea the woman answering her phone call was the one who controlled the entire school's security system. In a place where wealthy families believed money could erase camera footage, buy fake reports, and protect spoiled athletes, Zuri refused to bow her head. What started as a racist act of intimidation quickly unraveled into a conspiracy involving hidden evidence, corrupt officials, fake security badges, and a cover-up far bigger than anyone imagined. Stay until the very end. You won't believe who really falls first. And before we begin, tell us in the comments, where are you watching this video from? At 4:12 that afternoon, Ridgewood Harbor's soccer field was almost empty. Practice had ended. The bleachers were quiet, and the electronic scoreboard still displayed the number 83 from an earlier system test. A storm was moving in from the coast, darkening the sky above the stadium lights. Zuri Bennett and Elena Ruiz crossed the running track toward the bench area to retrieve a folder from Zuri's sports bag. They had almost reached it when Carter Maddox stepped into their path. Wesley Pike moved behind Elena, while Dylan Ross appeared beside Carter with his phone already in his hand. Carter accused Zuri of reporting that several players had used counterfeit security badges to enter the training facility after curfew and had altered their practice records to remain eligible for competition. Zuri did not deny it. The coach had asked what she had seen, and she had answered honestly. Dylan snatched the folder from her hands and threw the papers across the track. When Elena tried to step forward, Wesley blocked her with one arm. Carter moved close enough that Zuri could feel his breath. He grabbed the front of her blue shirt, twisted the fabric inside his fist, and pulled her toward him. He said a new student receiving financial aid should be grateful. Ridgewood allowed her through the gates instead of trying to destroy the athletes who brought money and attention to the school. Zuri called out to Grant Sloan, the head of campus security, who was standing beside a patrol cart near the sideline. Grant saw everything. For one brief second, it looked as though he might intervene. Then Carter raised a security badge and laughed that Iron Gate paid men like Grant to remember who truly controlled the school. Grant turned away and lifted his radio. Pretending to make a call, Carter shoved Zuri down onto the track. Her knee struck the hard surface, sending pain through her leg. But he did not release her collar. He accused students like her of turning every disagreement into a discrimination complaint whenever they did not receive special treatment. Zuri understood the message beneath his words. This was not only about fake badges or altered records. Carter wanted her to know that at Ridgewood Harbor, credibility depended on money, race, and the name printed on a donor plaque. Elena quietly activated her camera. Across the field, Noah Kim was testing the scoreboard system and had accidentally left the stadium microphone recording. One camera near the light pole still showed a green status signal. Another had already gone offline. Zuri looked directly into Carter's face. "You're not powerful because no one stops you," she said. "You're protected by people who fear the truth more than they fear you." His expression hardened. He dragged her back to her feet by the shirt and warned that her scholarship would disappear before the weekend. A group of students entered the track from the far gate, forcing Carter to release her. He stepped back with a smile, certain the threat had worked. Zuri did not call the principal. She did not call campus police. She called her mother. "Mom?" she said when Mariah answered. Grant Sloan watched him attack me. There was silence for several seconds. Then Mariah asked, "Which cameras are still active?" Zuri identified the camera near the light pole. Mariah instructed her to send Elena's original video immediately and not to crop, rename, or edit a single second. Before ending the call, she added, "Do not leave the field, and do not let anyone take Elena's phone." Carter assumed Zuri had called an angry parent. He had no idea the woman on the other end had the authority to freeze the school's entire security system. That evening, Ridgewood Harbor's administrators began preparing a story that would turn Zuri into the aggressor. But the next morning, the woman they planned to dismiss as an emotional mother entered the disciplinary office in civilian clothes, and no one in the room recognized who had just taken a seat across from them. The following morning, Ridgewood Harbor High School treated the assault on the soccer field as nothing more than what administrators called a student conflict. At precisely 8:00 a.m., Zuri Bennett was instructed to report to the disciplinary conference room adjacent to Principal Victoria Lang's office. The atmosphere had been carefully staged long before she arrived. A polished oak table sat beneath framed photographs of championship teams, while a school attorney quietly arranged folders at one end of the room. Principal Victoria Lang stood beside Assistant Principal Malcolm Voss, speaking in low voices with Preston Maddox, whose expensive suit seemed more suited to a corporate boardroom than a school campus. Carter Maddox sat confidently in his chair, without a single visible sign of concern. Grant Sloan remained near the door, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Elena Ruiz attempted to enter beside Zuri, but the attorney informed her that only individuals directly involved in the disciplinary matter could remain inside. Mariah Bennett walked in quietly behind her daughter, wearing simple civilian clothing without any badge or uniform. To Victoria and Preston, she appeared to be nothing more than another worried parent. Without wasting time, Malcolm slid a typed statement across the table toward Zuri. The document declared that she had provoked Carter, attempted to seize his security badge, shoved him first, and spread false accusations intended to damage the reputation of Ridgewood Harbor's athletic program. According to the statement, both students had simply become involved in a mutual confrontation, and if Zuri signed the document immediately, each student would receive only a written warning. Malcolm described it as the quickest path toward moving forward together. Zuri barely glanced at the paper before sliding it back across the table. "None of this happened," she said calmly. "I'm not signing something that's false." Preston leaned forward before Malcolm could respond. His voice remained smooth and controlled, but every sentence carried an unmistakable threat. He warned that accusing Carter of assault could permanently damage the school's reputation and expose Zuri's family to expensive defamation lawsuits. He reminded her that scholarship committees disliked controversy and suggested colleges might reconsider supporting students who created unnecessary conflict. Carter then opened his phone and displayed a short video. It began only after Zuri had grabbed his wrist to force his hand away from her shirt, making it appear as though she had attacked him without provocation. Grant supported Carter's version of events by claiming he had witnessed only a disagreement between two students. When Elena insisted she possessed another recording showing the entire encounter, Victoria immediately interrupted, declaring that Elena was not a subject of the disciplinary investigation and ordering her to leave the room. The school attorney quietly closed the conference room door behind her. Throughout the meeting, Mariah remained silent. She neither defended her daughter emotionally nor reacted to Preston's threats. Instead, she opened a notebook and began asking questions in an almost conversational tone. "Who secured the camera footage after yesterday's incident?" she asked. No one answered immediately. She continued, "Who authorized a student to possess an active security badge? At what exact time was this disciplinary statement created? Why did the school announce that a camera had malfunctioned before any technician had inspected it?" Malcolm's confidence began to crack. He answered vaguely, insisting the report had been prepared after reviewing witness accounts the previous evening. Mariah simply nodded and requested access to the document's metadata. The room grew noticeably quieter as the attorney reluctantly opened the file on a laptop. The creation timestamp appeared on the screen. 3:06 p.m. The assault had not occurred until more than an hour later. Even more disturbing, the names Zuri, Bennett, Carter Maddox, and the phrase mutual student conflict had already been typed into the document before Carter ever stepped onto the soccer field. No one spoke. Malcolm quickly claimed it had merely been a template prepared in advance for efficiency. But Mariah calmly pointed out that templates did not contain completed names, detailed accusations, and specific disciplinary language before an incident even existed. Someone inside Ridgewood Harbor had expected Carter to confront Zuri and had prepared an official narrative blaming her before the attack happened. Preston's patience finally disappeared. He stood abruptly and pointed toward Mariah. "This woman is interfering with a school disciplinary process," he snapped. "She needs to leave this room immediately." Mariah slowly reached into her purse and placed a leather credential holder on the table. She opened it without saying a word. Chief Mariah Bennett, District Director of Security and Emergency Response. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Grant Sloan's face immediately turned pale. Victoria stopped speaking altogether. Even Carter looked uncertain for the first time since entering the room. Preston stared at the identification card. Suddenly realizing the woman he had dismissed as an ordinary parent supervised security operations throughout the entire district, including Ridgewood Harbor. Mariah closed the credential holder and looked directly at Grant. "Effective immediately," she said. "Your system access is suspended, pending investigation. All Ridgewood Harbor surveillance data is now under evidence preservation orders. Irongate personnel are prohibited from accessing any district servers until an independent review is completed." Minutes later, district technicians remotely accessed the campus surveillance system. One alert immediately appeared on the monitor. Camera 4 device failure, 358 p.m. The timestamp froze everyone in the room. The camera overlooking the soccer field had supposedly failed 14 minutes before Carter grabbed Zuri's shirt. But an even more troubling discovery followed. The command that disabled the camera had not originated from Ridgewood Harbor's internal network. It had been issued through an administrator account belonging to Irongate Security. A bully might lose control in a moment of anger. But a security company disables cameras before violence occurs, only when someone has already told them exactly what is about to happen. Mariah Bennett formally removed herself from the investigation the moment it became clear that the attack on Zuri involved more than one student and one compromised security officer. As the district's director of security and emergency response, she had the authority to preserve evidence and suspend access. But because Zuri was her daughter, remaining in direct control would give Preston Maddox exactly the argument he wanted. Mariah requested that independent Inspector Simone Cross take over the case and transferred every file, access log, and witness statement into Simone's custody. That same afternoon, Noah Kim asked to meet them inside the scoreboard control room. He explained that while the main field camera had been disabled, the stadium microphone operated through a separate system used for sports broadcasts. It had continued recording automatically long after practice ended. The recovered audio was rough but clear enough. Carter could be heard threatening Zuri's scholarship. Wesley's voice appeared as he blocked Elena from approaching. Zuri called Grant Sloan by name and asked for help. Then came the sound of Grant's phone ringing. A man's voice spoke through the call. Simone enhanced the recording and identified it as Preston Maddox. "Do not step in," Preston said. "Carter only needs to make her understand the consequences." Grant answered that one of the field cameras was still active. "Let Irongate handle it." Preston replied. The sentence changed everything. Grant had not frozen because he was confused or afraid. He had received a direct order to remain still while Carter attacked Zuri. Irongate had not simply covered up the assault afterward. It had managed the scene while it was happening. At home that evening, Zuri's anger turned toward her mother. Mariah had personally recommended Grant for promotion 2 years earlier. Zuri asked how someone trusted to protect students could stand nearby and watch her get dragged across the track. Mariah did not defend her decision. She admitted that she had judged Grant through evaluations, training results, and the respectful way he behaved around senior officials. She had failed to see who he became when he believed no one with authority was watching. Isaiah reminded Zuri that trusting a system did not make her responsible for the people who corrupted it. The blame belonged to Grant, Preston, and everyone who had chosen silence for them. Simone then uncovered a deeper violation. The security contract stated that only the district could disable or delete camera footage, yet Irongate had secretly maintained an administrative account called Emergency Vendor Override. The account allowed company personnel to shut down cameras without district approval. It had been used not once, but repeatedly, across several incidents. That night, someone attempted to enter the district data center and erase the stadium audio. Noah managed to preserve part of the recording before the deletion command spread through the archive. The access log named the user responsible Mariah Bennett. By morning, Preston had already leaked the information to reporters. He accused Mariah of manipulating evidence and abusing her position to protect her daughter. The story moved faster than the forensic review. Simone traced the login location. The deletion had not come from Mariah's phone, office, or home computer. It had come from the workstation inside Grant Sloan's office. But when district personnel arrived to question him, Grant was gone. The man who had watched Zuri's assault now carried secrets capable of destroying Irongate. And before disappearing, he had left behind a digital trail designed to turn Zuri's mother into the primary suspect. Preston Maddox launched his public counterattack before Simone Cross had finished tracing the stolen login credentials. Outside Ridgewood Harbor, he stood before a wall of cameras and released an edited clip from the disciplinary meeting. The footage removed Mariah Bennett's questions about the pre-written confession, the disabled camera, and Carter's security badge. What remained made her appear to be threatening Principal Victoria Lang and using her position to force the school into protecting Zuri. Preston called it proof of a coordinated campaign of retaliation. Within hours, Deputy Superintendent Roland Kessler announced that Mariah had been suspended pending an internal investigation. Zuri was suspended as well for disrupting the learning environment, spreading unverified allegations, and influencing witnesses through her mother. The language sounded official, balanced, and carefully neutral. That was what made it so dangerous. The district was using procedure to punish the people who had exposed a crime while pretending the punishment was only temporary. The public reaction was immediate. Online posts described Zuri as a girl who had used her mother's authority to destroy Carter's future. Preston appeared on television beside Carter and claimed his family had become the target of an organized revenge campaign. Victoria insisted that Ridgewood Harbor was merely protecting students from a conflict between powerful adults. Several parents demanded that Zuri's scholarship be revoked. Others argued that Carter should not lose athletic opportunities because of one misunderstanding. Zuri watched strangers reduce the attack to a debate about her attitude and felt the weight of the phone call she had made from the soccer field. She told Mariah that one request for help had now placed her mother's entire career at risk. Mariah answered without hesitation, "A position is not worth keeping if protecting it requires me to pretend I did not see what they did to you." Isaiah supported her, but he also warned that she could not turn Zuri's pain into a personal battle to restore her own honor. Simone had to remain in control of the investigation, even if the truth took longer than anger wanted. That truth began to emerge when Simone's forensic team examined the false login. Mariah's account had been accessed through a device designed to duplicate authentication codes. The device had connected from Grant Sloan's office several times before the deletion attempt. Someone had stolen Mariah's credentials in advance and waited for the right moment to use them. Before Simone could issue a public correction, Elena received a scheduled message from Grant. "I did not delete the camera footage. Find locker 83 beneath the east bleachers. Do not trust the man who signed her mother's suspension." Simone took Zuri and Elena to the old storage corridor beneath the stadium. Locker 83 had rusted hinges and no nameplate. Inside, they found a small hard drive, dozens of counterfeit security badges, surveillance photographs of the Bennett family, and a list of 14 students marked high liability. There was also a draft suspension order for Zuri created before Carter ever touched her. Her name was the final entry on the list. The 13 students before her had all transferred, lost scholarships, or been disciplined after reporting athletes and children of major donors. The files did not describe them as victims. They described them as problems to be neutralized. Simone opened the last document. Its title read, Bennett Containment Sequence. Step 1. Create conflict on the field. Step 2. Disable camera coverage. Step 3. Force. A mutual conflict agreement. Step 4. Portray Mariah Bennett as abusing her authority if the family resists. Carter's assault had not been an impulsive act of anger. It was the opening move in a written plan designed to remove Zuri's scholarship and strip her mother of the power to investigate what happened next. The hard drive recovered from Locker 83 contained files on 14 students who had reported violence, athletic fraud, or misconduct involving protected athletes and donor families. The names changed, but the pattern never did. A camera failed at the exact moment an assault occurred. A mediation statement was prepared before witnesses were interviewed. Medical records were rewritten. The victim was labeled disruptive, unstable, or dishonest. Then a scholarship, a parent's job, or a college recommendation was placed on the table until the family agreed to disappear quietly. Zuri read through the files inside Ridgewood Harbor's medical office, while Inspector Simone Cross cataloged each document. The more she read, the clearer it became that the school had not repeatedly made the same mistake. It had perfected the same method. Nurse Camille Porter finally admitted that Principal Victoria Lang had pressured her to alter several injury reports. Bruises caused by assault became sports accidents. Concussion symptoms became dehydration. Marks around a student's neck were described as irritation from a uniform collar. Camille had secretly preserved copies of the original records because she knew the official files were false. One belonged to Imani Wells, a former Ridgewood student who had transferred 2 years earlier. When Simone located Imani, she agreed to speak at her family's home. She explained that she had once seen Carter Maddox and Wesley Pike beating a younger student inside the locker room. After she reported it, Carter grabbed her by the shirt and slammed her into a metal locker. Ridgewood recorded the injury as an accidental fall while changing clothes. Her father worked for a subcontractor, dependent on Irongate. When the Wells family refused to sign a confidentiality agreement, he lost his job. Their landlord received calls questioning their ability to pay rent, and Imani was warned that colleges would be told she had fabricated a racial complaint for attention. The family eventually left the district. Zuri asked why none of the 14 students had stood together. Imani's answer was painfully simple. They did not threaten only us. She said, they threatened everyone we loved. Zuri understood then that silence was not proof of weakness. It was the product of a system designed to make every victim believe that speaking would punish an entire family. Simone uncovered an even darker motive in Irongate's billing records. After nearly every concealed assault, Preston sold Ridgewood an emergency security response package. The packages included new cameras, additional guards, surveillance software, media consulting, and risk analysis fees. Preston had not merely protected Carter from consequences. He had used his son's violence to create crises, then charged the district millions to solve them. Imani agreed to testify, but only after Simone promised protection for her younger brother, who still attended school in the district. She never reached the signing appointment. Someone had cut the brake line on her car. Imani avoided a major collision. But while police examined the vehicle, her brother disappeared from his bus stop. Minutes later, Zuri received a live video. The boy was tied to a chair inside a stadium equipment room. Wesley stood beside him, holding up the missing hard drive. Bring the drive, he said. No police, no mother. The forged records and public smears had failed. Carter's group had moved to something simpler and more brutal, using a child as payment for the evidence that could bring Iron Gate down. Inspector Simone Cross organized the rescue operation immediately, but she ordered Zuri to remain outside the stadium. The video appeared to show Imani's younger brother inside the main equipment room, yet Zuri noticed details the adults had missed. A mechanical pump could be heard behind Wesley's voice, and a faded maintenance symbol appeared on the wall beside the chair. She had seen the same symbol on an old stadium map. The hostage was not in the main storage area. He was inside the eastern maintenance tunnel, once used for irrigation equipment. Acting on Zuri's observation, Simone divided the team and sent officers through two separate entrances. They reached the tunnel before Wesley could move the boy. Imani's brother was rescued, while Wesley was captured after a short chase beneath the bleachers. Dylan tried to destroy his phone, but Elena had already saved the live stream to an online account. Carter escaped through a service passage leading toward Iron Gate's parking area. Under questioning, Wesley admitted Carter had ordered the kidnapping. Preston Maddox, however, had given the final instruction: recover the hard drive at any cost. Wesley said Carter believed his father would reduce the abduction to an overgrown prank between students, just as he had erased every previous assault. That confession pushed Mariah beyond patience. She told Simone that Zuri had to be removed from the investigation immediately. Zuri refused. She had identified the hostage location because she understood the stadium and the way students were being monitored. Mariah warned that an investigation could not turn her daughter into bait. Zuri answered that silence had never protected her. It only allowed other people to decide what happened and then write the official version afterward. Before the argument could continue, Grant Sloan entered the security control room. With his hands raised, he surrendered voluntarily and claimed he had been collecting evidence against Preston for nearly a year. But his confession offered no clean redemption. Grant admitted falsifying reports, providing counterfeit badges to students, tracking victims' families, ignoring multiple assaults, and using Mariah's stolen credentials to create a false digital trail. He argued that confronting Preston too early would have caused Iron Gate to destroy everything. Mariah stared at him. "You did not protect students," she said. "You decided which students could be sacrificed to protect your cover." Grant finally admitted that he had chosen what he called the larger case over the victims standing in front of him. Then he revealed that Iron Gate used the same system across 21 schools. A senior district official was being paid to warn Preston about inspections, renew contracts, suspend investigators, and send complaints back to Iron Gate for internal handling. Grant opened his mouth to give the name. A bullet shattered the control room window. Grant fell with a wound in his shoulder as the shooter escaped through the parking lot. Inside Grant's pocket, Simone found a small key marked 83 and a note scoreboard archive. Offline, Kessler knows. The final name was Roland Kessler, the man who had signed Mariah's suspension. The most important evidence had never been stored on the school's main server. It was hidden inside the scoreboard where Carter once held up a badge and claimed his family owned Ridgewood Harbor's security. Wesley Pike was the first to cooperate, facing serious kidnapping charges. He admitted that Carter had ordered him to hold Imani's brother, but Preston Maddox had demanded that the hard drive be recovered at any cost. Dylan Ross followed soon after. He surrendered the original field video, the editing instructions, and the accounts used to spread the smear campaign against Zuri. Both boys believed Preston's lawyers would protect them. Instead, they discovered prepared statements designed to make them the masterminds. Wesley was supposed to take full responsibility for the kidnapping. Dylan was supposed to claim he had edited the video without anyone's knowledge. Carter then found the file prepared for him, a portrait of an unstable, violent teenager who had acted alone. The three boys, who once relied on each other, were now racing to betray one another before Preston could sacrifice them all. At the Maddox estate, Carter confronted his father. Preston did not deny using every scandal to strengthen Irongate's contracts. Each assault created fear. Each hidden complaint became proof that the school needed more guards, more cameras, and more expensive surveillance. Carter asked whether his father had ever truly protected him or only protected the company. "I protect what has value," Preston said. Carter understood immediately that the answer was not him. During a supervised confrontation, Carter apologized to Zuri and blamed the man who had raised him to believe consequences could always be erased. Zuri refused to let him disappear behind that excuse. "Your father built the shield," she said, "but you chose to stand behind it and hurt people." Being manipulated did not make Carter innocent. He had still chosen to grab her shirt, threaten her scholarship, and laugh while Grant stood aside. Principal Victoria Lang reached the same conclusion from the opposite direction. She discovered that Preston was preparing to place every administrative decision under her authority, fearing she would become the final scapegoat. She requested a cooperation agreement. Victoria handed Simone a recording of Preston saying, "We do not need to protect Carter. We only need to protect the contract." She also surrendered a key linked to the hidden storage system behind the scoreboard. Before Victoria could sign her formal statement, she drank from a bottle of water in the hospital waiting area and collapsed. Doctors determined that she had been poisoned. When investigators opened her hand, the key was still clenched inside it. The number stamped across the metal was 83. Noah confirmed it was not a locker number. It was the access code to an independent archive built inside the electronic scoreboard. The scoreboard everyone watched each week was hiding a data vault. Preston was willing to poison an accomplice to protect. Using the key, marked 83, Simone's team opened a narrow technical compartment built inside the stadium scoreboard. Behind the maintenance panel was an offline storage system containing unedited videos, counterfeit security badges, payment records, silence agreements, media scripts, fabricated security contracts, and lists of families considered vulnerable to pressure. There were also detailed files on students classified as high liability. Each profile included disciplinary weaknesses, family employment information, psychological notes, and instructions for turning a victim into the apparent aggressor. The evidence showed that Irongate had used the same system across 21 schools. At each campus, protected athletes and donor families received special treatment. Cameras could be disabled through hidden vendor access. Medical records were altered. Students who reported violence were labeled unstable or disruptive. Then, after every hidden incident, Irongate sold the school another emergency security package. The contracts had been inflated by tens of millions of dollars. The moment technicians connected the main drive to a forensic workstation, a remote deletion sequence began. Files disappeared from the screen faster than the team could copy them. Noah remembered that the scoreboard used an independent transmission line for sports broadcasts. He crawled behind the control cabinet, located the physical connection, and ripped it free. The deletion stopped with seconds to spare. The technical team created a complete forensic copy before anyone outside the stadium could reconnect. The recovered records placed Deputy Superintendent Roland Kessler at the center of the protection system. He had accepted payments from Irongate, warned Preston before inspections, signed Mariah's suspension order, and directed complaints back to the contractor for internal review. He had also approved emergency upgrades without competitive bidding and allowed Irongate to maintain its secret administrator account. But Roland's role went further than protecting Preston. Simone found records showing that he had used confidential student files to pressure district board members. If they questioned the contracts, Roland threatened to release information involving their children, donors, or schools. Irongate's surveillance system had become a weapon for controlling the entire district. As Simone prepared to release the evidence to prosecutors, thousands of files inside the official case server began disappearing through executive-level access. The account name appeared on every deletion command Roland Kessler. At the same time, Roland stepped before television cameras and accused Mariah of manufacturing the investigation to seize control of the district's security budget. He called the scoreboard evidence fabricated and described Zuri as a pawn in her mother's political ambitions. The final protector of the system was no longer a donor, a principal, or a contractor. He was the official with the authority to decide which schools could be investigated and which investigators would lose their careers for getting too close. The district auditorium was packed with reporters, parents, students, prosecutors, and representatives from the state education department. Preston Maddox's attorney opened by portraying Zuri Bennett as a resentful student and Mariah as a mother who had abused her authority to destroy a boy's future. Roland Kessler tried to block any discussion of Irongate's contracts, claiming the financial records were still under internal review. Simone Cross answered by presenting bank transfers, showing that Roland had received money through an Irongate subsidiary. Under pressure from the audience and live television cameras, Roland was removed from control of the hearing. Then the witnesses spoke. Elena played the complete video from the soccer field. Noah presented the scoreboard audio in which Preston ordered Grant not to intervene. Camille submitted the medical reports she had been forced to alter. Imani described Carter's assault, her father's lost job, and the pressure that drove her family from the district. Grant admitted that he had watched students suffer to protect his cover. Wesley testified about the kidnapping, while Dylan surrendered the messages directing the online smear campaign. Victoria confirmed that Preston had controlled school discipline, camera access, and contract decisions for years. When Carter was questioned, he blamed his father for teaching him that consequences did not exist. Zuri refused to let him use Preston as a shield one final time. "Your father could turn off a camera," she said, "but he did not control your hand when you grabbed my shirt." She made Carter look toward Imani and the former students he had treated as though their voices did not matter. Simone then played the complete recording from Archive 83. Preston instructed Carter to frighten Zuri. Grant was ordered to stand aside. The camera shut down and written confession were arranged in advance. Roland promised to suspend Mariah. Counterfeit badges were supplied, and evidence would be planted if Zuri refused to withdraw her complaint. The recording also connected Preston to the kidnapping of Imani's brother, Victoria's poisoning, and the shooting that wounded Grant. Investigators entered the auditorium before the recording ended. Preston was arrested for public contract fraud, bribery, obstruction, evidence destruction, witness intimidation, kidnapping, conspiracy to cause bodily harm, and unlawful surveillance of students. Roland was arrested for corruption, abuse of office, and deleting evidence. Victoria was escorted away to complete her cooperation agreement. Grant remained under investigation for falsifying records and failing to protect students. Carter, Wesley, and Dylan faced separate charges for their own actions. As officers led Preston toward the exit, he looked back at Mariah. "You think Ridgewood Harbor is the only school?" Simone opened the final folder recovered from the archive. It contained the names of 21 schools and hundreds of students. One video showed a girl being forced into an Irongate vehicle before disappearing from the attendance system. Ridgewood Harbor was not the only school that turned victims into suspects to protect the wealthy. It was simply the first place where one student called the right person before all the evidence disappeared. In the months that followed, the case against Preston Maddox expanded far beyond Ridgewood Harbor. He was indicted on charges involving public contract fraud, bribery, obstruction of justice, kidnapping, witness, intimidation, unlawful surveillance, and destruction of evidence. Roland Kessler was charged with accepting bribes, abusing his office, and protecting Irongate from investigation. Victoria Lang pleaded guilty to concealing violence and falsifying school records, then cooperated with prosecutors. In exchange for a reduced sentence, Grant Sloan was also held accountable for failing to intervene, rewriting reports, and helping monitor students, even though he later surrendered evidence. Irongate lost every contract it held across 21 schools. Carter was expelled, lost his athletic scholarship, and faced charges for assault, intimidation, and participation in the kidnapping conspiracy. In court, he admitted that he had believed the Maddox name placed him above every rule. Zuri did not ask for cruelty. She asked that Carter listen to every victim, complete a supervised restorative accountability program, lose any benefit gained from falsified athletic records, and publicly accept his own role instead of blaming everything on his father. The 14 old cases were reopened. False transfer documents were canceled. Students who had lost scholarships or college opportunities because of fabricated reports were allowed to seek compensation and restore their records. Imani returned as a public witness. No longer carrying the shame the school had tried to place on her, Mariah was reinstated, but she refused to return to the old system. She demanded an independent oversight office beyond the control of contractors and school administrators. A system cannot investigate itself and call that transparency, she said. Zuri returned to Ridgewood Harbor. With her scholarship intact, she refused to become the face of the school's New Beginning campaign. She joined the Student Safety Council only after the district agreed to independent camera storage, public security contracts, a ban on donor interference, the cancellation of silence agreements involving minors, outside investigations, and the reopening of every buried case. One afternoon, Zuri and Mariah returned to the soccer field. The old scoreboard marked 83 had been replaced, and the new cameras stored footage on an independent server. Mariah asked whether Zuri regretted calling her that day. "I didn't call because I wanted you to make them afraid," Zuri said. "I called because they built everything on the belief that I would be afraid and stay silent." Mariah told her the call had not destroyed Preston or Carter. Their own choices had done that. Carter thought he was only grabbing the shirt of a black girl on a soccer field. Preston thought money could shut down cameras, purchase silence, and turn a mother into a suspect. But the hand on Zuri's collar did not make her bow. It dragged an entire false security system into the light. Before they left, Simone called. A file from another school showed a student being forced into an Irongate vehicle without any arrest, medical, or transfer record. "Ridgewood Harbor is over," Simone said. "But the investigation into the 21 schools is only beginning." Zuri looked back across the field. She was no longer waiting for adults to decide whether she deserved to be believed. She had become the first witness who forced the entire system to answer. What began with one hand grabbing a black girl's shirt on a soccer field ended with an entire network of corruption exposed. Zuri never wanted revenge, and Mariah never used her authority to protect her daughter from the truth. Instead, they proved that real justice isn't about who has the most power, it's about who refuses to stay silent when power is abused. Carter lost the shield he had hidden behind. Preston lost the empire he believed could never fall. And Ridgewood Harbor was finally forced to answer for the people it had failed. Now, we want to hear from you. If you were in Zuri's position, would you have stayed silent to protect your future? Or would you have risked everything to expose the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every one of them. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who believes justice matters, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories where courage stands up to corruption. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next story.